I try to correct you to the answer. The war is not just with Hamas. The war is with all the civilians that
Minister Bezalel Smotrich for calling for wiping the Palestinian village of Huwara off the map. This week we've heard the Defense Minister of Israel, Yoav Gallant, declare that he's fighting human animals in Gaza as Israel cuts off the gas, the water, and the electricity. We've heard Benjamin Netanyahu, the Prime Minister, declare that all hiding places will be turned to rubble in a besieged coastal enclave where there are 1 million children. We've heard Ariel Kalner, who is a member of Knesset from the ruling Likud party, call for a Nakba 2.0, which is essentially a call for genocide and the ethnic cleansing of Palestinians as 850 are dead in Gaza. So what do you think of that rhetoric in light of your previous condemnation?
Let me say a few things about that. Number one, we expect, as we said, that Israel will conduct its operations in accordance with international law. Number two, there are going to be a number of statements made over the course of this conflict, and when we have disagreements with them, we will make those known privately. Number three, though, let me just speak to this. Number three, some of the questions I'm getting today do seem to ignore the fact that Israel just had hundreds of its citizens killed, people who were taken hostage, and pretend that Israel shouldn't be able to conduct any kind of. Let me just say,
Palestinian children have been killed? Do you acknowledge that? Will you even acknowledge that?
Let me finish.
80 Palestinian children killed
you know what?
this week?
Again,
babies. Do you acknowledge that?
You asked a question. I will answer the question.
Okay, well, that's my question.
So I'm going to start by answering the previous question that was interrupted.
Finish them. Hamas did this. You know Iran's behind it. Finish them. They should have hell to pay for what they've just done.
This was an attack on America, she says, when in fact it was not. And for that reason, we must, quote, finish Iran, a nation of nearly 90 million people. What are we watching here? This is not sober leadership. She's a child, and this is the tantrum of a child. Ignorant, cocksure, bloodthirsty. Yet no one in Washington scolded her for it.
He also tore into Graham and Crenshaw, who went a step further, urging Israel to bomb Iran. Take a look.
What exactly would happen to the United States if we declared war on Iran and started blowing up their infrastructure? Lindsey Graham has no clue what would happen. He hasn't thought it through. He's almost 70 years old and he has no children. He doesn't care. But neither, amazingly, do most of his colleagues in Washington. They're as reckless as he is. Texas Congressman Dan Crenshaw took to social media to call for what he described as a war to end all wars, as if there is such a thing.
Not only our core Jewish values, our core teachings of B'Tselem Elohim, that every single human being is made in the image of God. Not only that, also our history, the rhetoric that we see coming from the Israeli government right now is genocidal. Make no mistake, as Jews, we recognize it. And as Jews, we know that that means that through our grief, we have to speak up. We have to speak up because we know we're saying things like human animals. As you talk about bombing an entire people, we know where that leads.
like Cornel West will engage in crocodile tears, blame it on Israel, when the entire blame is on the Palestinians, Hamas, for using their children as human shields, and then using their children as shields to permit the killing of Israeli
Don't accuse me.
What is Hamas's charter?
Yeah. I have the same outrage when Palestinian babies are killed, when Jewish babies or Israeli babies. I want you to have the same indignation when Palestinians are killed.
Not when they're killed. Not when they're killed by Palestinians. You can't make a moral comparison. When Nazi kids were killed in the bombings of Dresden, I didn't have the same comparison when Jewish kids were put in gas chambers and crematoriums. You're a professor of theology. Don't you understand the moral difference between deliberately murdering a kid and
you hear someone talking over, you know what? The argument is garbage. I also believe that most people are smart enough to realize that Dr. Cornel West is not saying Hamas is good. He's saying you cannot treat people this way. You cannot put people in an open-air prison camp under apartheid conditions for 17 years to just show up and say, get in the cell. You're in these confines. You do what we say. And strip them of their rights, their pursuit of happiness. Strip them of their ability to move around. Strip them of their ability to pursue goals, ambitions, to take away everything from them, to treat them like less than animals, to refer to them as less than animals, monstrous demons, to demonize the people like that for 17 years, and then when a faction within those people rises up to go against you, and they do things that are wrong, of course, but what did you expect to happen? What do you expect to happen? Huh? What was the expectation of Alan Dershowitz of people that have been put in this position? See, Sean Hannity, Alan Dershowitz, and all the people that support Israel don't want to admit that Israel's wrong. You cannot care for one group of people at the total decimation of another group of people and then call it justice. It's just not. It really sheds a light on how people view people who are oppressed. Same thing they did to us, the same things they do to us currently. Any pointing out, any exposing of these issues, they say you're playing victim. Say you're siding with violence, but they don't consider what they do as violent. It is violent to deny someone employment, to deny someone ability to buy a home, to deny someone
damage because there are human shields. You're running for president of the United States. What would you do? Let me ask the question.
Okay.
What would you do if if terrorists were firing at American children in America and the terrorists were hiding behind Palestinian children? Would you allow the killing of Americans to continue, or would you go and get the terrorists, even if it meant possibly collateral damage on Palestinians? What would you do?
I'll tell you exactly what I would do. First, truth and morality tend to be two casualties in any context of war.
I'm not denying anything.
You are.
No, I accept that some civilians have been killed. I do accept this. And I already said...
You don't believe any of the reports that women were raped?
No, I didn't say that. I said that it's still to be
do you think they were raped?
No, I don't know. It's like the Russell Brand thing. You said we don't know. We need to see the evidence. So why do you apply two different standards?
Okay, so it's been reported.
When it's Israel, we know they're raped. When it's Russell Brand, you don't know because it's your friend.
No, it's been reported by legitimate news sources.
When it's Israel, you know they're raped. But when it's Russell Brand, you don't know.
Them.
When it's Russell Brand, you don't know if they're raped.
There's no comparison between Russell Brand and what's happened.
It's the same thing. It's a rape allegation. Why are you stuttering?
I'm not stuttering.
You are stuttering. You don't have anything to say.
You're contesting every single thing that I'm saying.
Yeah, that's
and I'm
the
saying
point
to
of
you,
an argument.
at the end, 1,300 people were brutally
2,000
murdered,
people have been killed on the other side.
Abused.
2,000 people have been killed on the other side.
I said that to the ambassador.
Okay, but do you condemn that, yes or no?
I don't think...
So you refuse to condemn?
No.
You do refuse to condemn?
Why are you putting words in my mouth?
Because you're not condemning it, are you?
What do you want me to condemn?
Israel's right. Excellent. What do I want you to condemn?
Yes.
I want you to condemn the fact that the IDF, knowing that it's more probable than not, pressing buttons from the sky, killing innocent civilians, 1,000 of them children, that is a war crime and that is not acceptable morally. Just like you condemn the other one. Is it condemnable or not?
I believe, given the scale of what Hamas did on October the 7th, Israel is entitled
to kill children.
No. That's not what I said.
Go ahead.
They're entitled to defend themselves with force.
Okay,
Then
excellent.
the question becomes, Mohammed,
Okay.
it's an interesting debate.
Sure.
If, as it seems to me, you believe too,
Go on.
Hamas are not a force for good, do you believe that?
Well, I think that anybody who kills children and those elements of Hamas who are killing children...
Right, so we can
are not-
agree. So we agree. So
go
my
ahead,
point
finish
is,
your point.
if Israel's purpose is to rid the world of Hamas after the atrocity of October the 7th,
Sure.
how do they do that, given that Hamas embeds itself in civilian areas in the way that it does? Everyone knows that in Gaza.
Okay.
How do they do that
Excellent.
in the surgically clean way that you seem to think they should be doing?
Okay, can I say...
How do you not kill civilians?
Beautiful. Can I
don't like any civilian death.
Do you mind if I answer
I
the question?
don't endorse any civilian death.
Well, no,
Do
you
I
don't condemn it, though,
Hang
do you?
on.
Yeah.
No, and here's why. Because I support Israel's right to defend
Okay,
itself.
beautiful.
Now,
Can I say
no,
something?
No, one more point. So then
Go
you
ahead.
can reply.
Sure.
But the question then becomes, what is proportionate?
Okay.
What is a proportionate response?
Okay.
I don't have the answer.
Excellent.
Because I don't know what a proportionate response to 1,300 murders is. When 260 young people at a music festival, most of them peace-loving people enjoying themselves at a festival, when they get slaughtered by people
Is there any
paragliding
evidence all of them
in
were
with
killed?
machine guns, I don't know what the proportionate response
Piers,
is.
let me respond to
So
you.
can you tell me?
You've spoken for about 2 minutes. You didn't do that with the ambassador. By the way, I'm just showing you're saying fair, but you're not being fair.
I've said what I
okay,
wanna say.
so let me paint a picture.
I will be fair.
Sure.
I'm genuinely interested in what
Fine.
you have to say.
All right, excellent. You're from Irish descent. You know that there was an IRA in Belfast and so on. Okay, so let me ask you a question now. If there was IRA in Belfast and they were occupying council properties and so on, and then we have a plane of RAF going to destroy that council property, destroy all of Belfast, flatten it, as one representative said, Gottlieb. The IDF said that. One of the IDF members said that we will flatten it completely. That's what we want to do. We don't care about accuracy, he said. We care about damage. That's what he said. You didn't question her about that. But anyway, if the RAF were to then go into Belfast and flatten, as the IDF and these guys want to do, if they want to flatten Belfast with all the white people, I'm going to use the term white, all the white people, council estates living in there, with the excuse that we're doing it because it's proportionate defense to the terrorists. What would you say about that?
All these innocent Israelis.
Of course not.
Gaza has been facing
You're not answering.
chronic
Would they be
process
facing
of
imminent annihilation
since 2000.
Would they be
And
facing
2000 and
imminent
what? 2000
annihilation?
and what?
Since 2006 and 7, and Gaza was taken over by Hamas. I'm not
And they
pro-Hamas. I'm pro-democracy, but I'm concerned about the suffering of Palestinians.
Israel didn't fire a single rocket until Hamas fired 5,000 rockets.
Israel controls the land, the air,
only after
containment,
Hamas
the
took
food
over.
going in, the trade
Only
coming in,
after.
and so forth. But it was already under occupation
It
since
was never.
1967.
No. The occupation ended in 2005. Learn your history.
Oh.
Sharon left. Every Israeli settler, every Israeli soldier left. In 2006, it was like Singapore. It could have been the nicest place in the Mediterranean. Then Hamas overthrew them.
New York would be under occupation if another country owned its air, its space,
It didn't
its food
own
going
it
in, its
between
trade.
2006 and 2008.
Let's
Only
be honest
after
about
Hamas
let
took
me-
over.
the last few days.
They go to Egypt. They go.
Egypt, how they
wait a
can't
minute.
get out.
Let
Come
me
on,
make another
brother.
thing clear.
No,
Gaza City is very dense. But
Absolutely,
Gaza
it is
itself, the Gaza Strip, there's lots of room. The Israelis have said, get out of Gaza City. Go to Rafah. Go to Khan Yunis. Go to other places. And you know what Hamas
With
is
no
saying?
water, no
Wait
food,
a minute.
no electricity,
You know what
all in
Hamas
the
is
dark?
saying? Hamas is saying, don't go.
Oh, I'm not here to
Don't
defend
go.
Hamas.
Well, you
No,
are here.
I'm not defending Hamas.
Wait a
Don't
minute.
you ever lie on me
Did
like
you
that, brother.
ever-
I'm defending the suffering of Palestinians.
I want to hear how
Hamas itself
wanna
committing
hear-
war crimes.
I want to hear you say.
Anybody who commits war crimes are barbaric. I'm saying that explicitly, but I want you to say if the Israeli Defense Forces are killing children, are they barbaric too?
No.
Are they ever barbaric?
No. If they target children.
Yes. Have they ever targeted children?
No,
They have
absolutely
never
never in the history
78 years.
have they ever targeted
brother,
a child
you got to get off the
deliberately.
crack pipe, man, please.
No, they
Please.
have never
You don't
targeted
think they
a child.
killed one innocent
not
person?
Purposely.
Since
no.
1948?
No, not
Are they that
purposely.
pure? Are they that
You don't have to be
pristine?
very
Come
pure
on, brother.
not to kill a
Please.
child. Not to kill a child.
Let me
They killed 550
Let me
in 50
show
days.
Because
something.
they're being used as human shields.
Let me show something
But
we
we
showed
got
on this
deep
program last
disagreement.
night.
Gaza very soon in response to Saturday's Hamas attack. We can expect things to get much, much bloodier from there. Meanwhile, the U.S. has deployed an aircraft carrier strike group to the eastern Mediterranean in support of the coming Israeli military operations, on top of the additional military aid Biden has already pledged to Netanyahu. At the same time, the Wall Street Journal claims that the Hamas operation was coordinated with both Iran and Hezbollah. This war has the potential to expand in some very ugly directions in the coming weeks. Whenever something like this happens, warmongers always seize on the emotional frenzy of the moment to shove through insane acts of warmongering and scream vitriol at anyone who questions them. Then, later, when all the facts are in, people start slowly realizing that something went very wrong, and that they were deceived. After 9/11, anyone who didn't support multiple full-scale ground invasions of sovereign nations was a terrorist sympathizer and a Saddam apologist. We were told Al-Qaeda were evil, irrational actors who attacked because, quote, they hate us for our freedom, and we need to support a war on terror against any nation deemed threatening because all such monsters understand is violence. Now, both the Iraq and Afghanistan wars are regarded as colossal mistakes by anyone who's honest. When Russia invaded Ukraine, anyone who wanted peace talks instead of a rapidly escalating proxy war between nuclear-armed nations was a Putin lover and a Kremlin shill. We were told Putin invaded solely because he is evil and hates freedom, and we need to support a war against him because all such monsters understand is violence. Now the counteroffensive failed. The U.S. Congress is having trouble getting funding, and even the head of NATO acknowledges that this war was provoked by NATO expansion. And now we're facing another instance of intense emotional frenzy, and we're being told that Hamas attacked Israel completely unprovoked, for no other reason than because they are evil monsters who love killing Jews. We will be told to support any act of war deemed necessary, because all such monsters understand is violence. Someday we're going to have to stop falling for this tired old song and dance. The Western press are largely to blame for all this. If they just told the truth instead of running Palestinian child walks into bullet headlines this whole time, and telling everyone that boycotting Israel is genocide, political pressure could have long ago been brought about to force a peaceful and just resolution to this mess. If they'd just done their jobs and reported the facts to the public, there never would have been enough public consent for the U.S. empire to back a brutal apartheid regime which cannot exist without nonstop violence, and peaceful resolutions would have become unavoidable. Instead, they hid all those abuses from the public for generations, creating an environment where peaceful resolutions are impossible and giving rise to Palestinian factions which understandably see violent force as the only viable answer. This is their fault. They created this mess with a mountain of lies and obfuscation, and now those lies are being paid for with rivers of blood. The Western press are war criminals. They've committed crimes against humanity. Israel apologists will seriously be like, why is everyone so obsessed with the nuclear-armed colonialist apartheid state which plays a pivotal role in U.S. warmongering in the Middle East? The only possible explanation is that they all harbor some weird hatred of Jewish people. I see no reason to speculate whether the Hamas offensive was allowed to happen at this time, when coming events will show how likely that was. If there's just a lot of violence and then it goes back to more or less the status quo, Israeli intelligence probably did just massively faceplant and miss extensive preparations for an attack which included training for air and sea assaults. If new agendas are rolled out that wouldn't have been consented to without the attack, chances are much higher that it was allowed. The more far-reaching the agendas, the greater the likelihood. It's getting harder and harder to argue that the U.S.-led world order brings more peace and stability to the world than the war and instability it causes. As more and more force is brought to bear against nations and groups who refuse to submit to Washington's dictates, we're seeing more and more conflict and chaos. Russia's refusal to lie down before Washington resulted in the Ukraine war and all the nuclear brinkmanship that comes with it. Hamas, Hezbollah, Ansar Allah, Syria, and Iran refusing to prostrate themselves to the U.S. power alliance results in constant violence in the Middle East. As the imperial crosshairs move to Beijing, we're now faced with the terrifying prospect of a hot war with China. At a certain point, you have to ask, if the U.S.-led world order requires more and more violence and nuclear brinkmanship to maintain, what specifically is the argument for maintaining it in the first place? Does it not at some point begin to cease looking like order at all, and instead like a tyrannical empire, trying to rule the world no matter how much death and destruction is necessary to subjugate it?